Hello and welcome to another Legal Fireside chat. Today I'm joined by two of the partners at global law firm Clyde Co. I've got Avryl, Lattin, and also Matt Ellis. Avryl, Matt, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much.
Thanks very much. Good to speak to you.
Good to speak to you too. Now, today we're going to be talking about the pace of change in the insurance sector in a post-Royal Commission world. And also, I suppose, in a post-pandemic world. Now, it's my understanding there's a lot happening in this space at the moment. And as a result, there's a lot of new challenges for lawyers in this space. So I'm keen to hear a bit more about why the pace of change is really accelerating, what's causing that, and what's going to constitute best practice moving forward for lawyers in this space when it comes to client service delivery. So Avryl, I might start with you. Could you give us a bit of an overview as to why the pace of activity in this space is really ramping up at the moment?
Yeah, sure. Thanks very much for the question. I think in the corporate insurance space or the insurance regulatory space, we really have seen just a tsunami of change in the last few years following the Royal Commission. It's come very fast, and then the industry's also had to respond to monumental changes in terms of the COVID issues. We're now seeing massive supply chain issues, and natural catastrophes continue to go on. So there's just so many different challenges the industry's dealing with, and as an industry, they've really got to look at, well, how do they get the most from that industry in terms of are there growth opportunities in terms of acquisitions? How do they deal with that regulatory change, and what advice do they need on that? And more, what we're seeing is they really need specialist advice that's tailored for the insurance industry itself.
And further to your point about there being a tsunami of change, I'm curious to know, Avryl, how much of this were we able to anticipate? And if some of it was able to be identified, is there more change coming down the pipeline that you're anticipating?
Sure. Look, I think reform in the insurance space, is under constant discussion. It's a very dynamic industry, and there are very unique challenges as new products come to market and new risks emerge that insurers have to deal with. So the regulators are always looking at how they might deal with those issues, and so change is inevitable in this sector, unfortunately. I think the Royal Commission, though, really meant that there was a real focus on getting a lot of change through in a very short period of time, and that was really the commitment by the government that meet all those recommendations. So it is unusual to see that much regulatory change happen across a number of different regulatory issues all at the one time, and I think that's the real issue that they had to grapple with. Some changes have been a long time coming, like the unfair contract terms change that had been talked about for over a decade before it finally made its way into legislation, but other changes like expanding the definition of financial services to include claims handling. That was one that has happened very quickly, and there was limited consultation period, and so now the industry is trying to work out what does that mean for claims handling going forward.
Matt, I want to bring you in here. It sounds as though that all of this change, and certainly all these regulatory updates are going to be really changing the nature of day-to-day practice for lawyers such as yourself. What's the current state of affairs for working in this space on the ground?
It's a good question. As Avryl said, it has been a really a big enterprise to embark on a whole lot of change in a very short period of time. I think for the lawyers who are engaged in this space, it's been a challenging but very exciting period to be involved in, because we are really at the coalface of really important business decisions and transformations for our clients. I genuinely expect that will be the environment we're operating in for a period to come still. As Avryl said, a lot of change quickly, but not all of the recommendations from the Royal Commission have been bedded down yet. There's still more to come, and a lot more work, not only in analysing those requirements but more so in implementing them and assisting the clients actually embed them and make sure that their businesses are operating as efficiently as well as they can in compliance with the law. So for the lawyers day to day, it has been a really challenging but really exciting place to work in. I really think that's going to continue for plenty more years to come.
I'm curious about your use of the term exciting, because I'm wondering that, as a result of your use of that word, do you see a lot of opportunity here for lawyers to find, new and creative ways to be advising their clients, given how much, the market is shifting, given how much regulatory change is happening, that, the advice that you might have offered pre-pandemic, perhaps is a bit redundant, and you can kind of wipe the slate clean and do something new in the post-pandemic world.
Yeah, it's an interesting way to look at it. I think it's all sort of building on prior expertise and the way businesses are changing to meet new needs. But it is exciting, and I think that's the right word to use. We're involved in a whole range of new issues for insurance clients. And the lawyers that we work with, and we're keen to build their expertise and to grow our practice, are really well-rounded lawyers who are expected really to operate across a lot of new areas that previously perhaps those who worked in the insurance sector might not have done. So we're engaged in corporate transactions, in reorganisations, in regulatory issues, right across issues of sanctions and white-collar crime and other areas of particular regulatory focus. So our lawyers, I think, are really exposed to a broad range of things. We have high expectations on what they need to deliver, but the challenges are really rewarding, I think, for lawyers in this space now.
Oh, well, that's good to hear. Avryl, when advising your clients about what's going to constitute best practice moving forward for their businesses and organizations, how much of the advice you're giving is proactive versus reactive? Obviously, there's a lot happening in the market right now, and with new regulation that you have to respond to in quick succession. But then I imagine there's also a number of things coming down the pipeline that you have to be on top of and ensure that your clients aren't scrambling.
Definitely. I think that focus on building resilience is what our practice is really about. We know that changes will come. We know unexpected things will happen, and we've seen that play out very clearly in the last few years. But what our advice is really tailored to is looking at, well, how can we help you prepare for as best you can and bounce back when those challenges come that maybe you weren't anticipating, but you've got given some thought to some of the issues that might emerge. I think we're really seeing a focus on that in the way that the industry is dealing with climate change, in dealing with organisational risk and operational resilience as well, and so how we can provide advice that focuses on that next level. And I think it is about using our global network as well, where we've seen regulatory changes or developments or trends happen in other jurisdictions, that we can be on the front foot with our clients here in Australia and say, well, this is the kind of thing we're anticipating is going to come down the line here as well, and that you should be thinking about.
It's cool to hear, that both of you seem really up to the challenge, of everything that is happening, and you're sort of welcoming it to an extent. And as a result of that, I'm curious to know from both of you. And Matt, I'll start with you, and then Avryl, I'll ask you the same question. But do you have an evolving sense of what it means to be a good lawyer in this space right now? Given everything that's happening and given everything that is still to come.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Avryl sort of touched on it a little bit, and maybe in my comments earlier as well. But we really see ourselves as aligned to our sector and the industry we're in. We want to be helping our clients build and make sure their practices, their businesses are sustainable. And to do that, we need lawyers who understand the insurance sector, understand how business works, and understand the intricacies of the environment in which they operate. So that's both commercially, operationally, and also from a regulatory point of view. And so that really is our focus, and that's how we maintain our sort of proactive look, and that's how we maintain close to our clients to make sure we're helping them and not not being the reactive lawyers that respond to issues.
Awesome. Avryl?
I agree with everything Matt said. We're a sector-focused firm, and our team is focused on the insurance sector. So it's really having that deep understanding of the issues that are coming to that sector's way, and how we can get on the front foot, as we've talked about, and help our clients. I think it's also bringing a real commercial understanding of the drivers of the business as well. And we're very lucky that we've had the opportunity for a number of our lawyers to go into secondment placements in regulatory teams or compliance teams and legal teams, and they really get a sense then of what decisions are being made, the pressure that the legal team's under, the type of innovation that the underwriting team might be looking at. So it's, coming to this practice, I think you do have to have that commercial understanding about what the business is trying to achieve and what environment they're operating in.
Well, you both sound incredibly busy with what's happening in your day-to-day lives. So I appreciate you carving out a few minutes to have a chat with me to give us a bit of a snapshot into what's happening in this sector right now. So Avryl, Lattin, Matt, Ellis, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for having us.